Good morning, students. Today once again we are here for the online geography classes for class 12, that is book 1, Fundamentals of Human Geography. We were doing chapter World Population, so we'll continue with that. World Population, that is chapter 2, Distribution, Density and Growth. Today is 14/03/20. So already we discussed about the first topic, which was there, that what is the distribution of population over the surface of the earth. How we have seen that in some areas the population distribution is densely populated, and in some areas the distribution is very sparsely populated. Then we have seen what is basically density, why do we need to know the density of a place, and then we talked about the growth of population, that what are the components of population change. We also discussed about the theory, that is the demographic transition theory, which explains that population changes from one stage to another with technological development, with social development, and with cultural development. Today we are going to discuss about the same topic, that is the trend in population growth. We'll see we discussed it with the help of 3 stages of population growth, but we did not discuss the trend in population growth with different time period. So today we are going to do it in different time periods. In 1650, the estimated population of the world was 500 million. This population from 500 million in 1650, today in 2020, it has reached to 8 billion. Today's topic is to see this journey from 500 million population over the earth from 1650 to 8 billion population in 2010. How it must have grown, what was the doubling period of population, and how long it took to double the population over the surface of the earth. We will also discuss that why it must have doubled so rapidly in last 200 years. So let's see. From 1650 to 1830, the population reached 1 billion. It means there was an increase of 500 million of population by now, and the reason was the knowledge of agriculture. People knew how to grow crops, they learned how to grow crops, so they did not worry about hunting and gathering. Now they could grow their own food, so the population increased from 500 to 1 billion in 1830. Then we find in 1930, after almost 100 years, this population from 1 billion reached 2 billion. So you can see that it took really 100 years for the population to double. From 1930, just after 30 years, we find that in 1960, population reached 3 billion. Then after 15 years, in 1975, it was seen that population reached 4 billion. After 12 years, you can see how the population is doubling. First it took 100 years, then it took 30 years, then it took only 15 years, and then it took 12 years, and we reached here in 1986, that is 5 billion. Again after 12 years, that is 1998, it reached 7 billion. And from 1998, again, if we take 12 years, approximately by 2023, you will find the population already we have reached 8 billion. So it means the doubling period decreased over the years. So what can be the reason that the population doubled suddenly so rapidly with increasing year? Let's see. This was the period, 1830 was the period of knowledge of agriculture. This was also, after this was also the period of age of exploration. You can say colonization and trade. Gradually after 1830, we noticed something. Here I would like to mention that science and technology is one reason, the advancement in science and technology was one reason for reduction of birth rate, and it also gave a stage for accelerated population growth. So from 1830 to 1930, we witnessed industrial revolution, where we have seen that how machines have replaced human beings. And with the increase in production, we find the number of people doubled. After that industrial revolution, we found another revolution in transportation, that is, animals were replaced by steam engines. So the movement among people between two nations was much faster, and that was one reason that we find that the population started increasing from 500 million to 1 billion and 1 billion to 2 billion. So what was the next thing? That why it took only 30 years from 1930 to 1960? What must be the reason that it, instead of taking 100 years, it took only 30 years? There was the period of medical breakthrough. Because of this medical breakthrough, we found birth rate which was still high, but death rate or the mortality rate declined, which increased the gap between these two, and we experienced population explosion. There were so many diseases which were not under control of human beings. Now with the introduction of vaccination, we could reduce infant mortality rate, we could reduce the mortality rate, and we increase the population. Not only about this, we also had sanitation, better sanitation facility. We know that because of poor sanitation, there were a number of diseases which were spreading all over the world. We know about plague. So now we could control the diseases which were spreading because of sanitation problem, the bacterial diseases. So this period only took 30 years. Now next we see from 1960 to 75, we saw that the population doubled only in 15 years. So what can be the reason behind that? That it took half of 30 years to double the population. This was the period when we noticed a change in agriculture, that is the introduction of biotechnology. If you don't know what is biotechnology, then the easy way to know is, you must have heard about green revolution, that is the introduction of high yielding variety seeds and increase the production of food grains. More and more food grains were there, and there was a problem of shortage of food, or famine or drought when people were dying, was solved. It was not only in terms of food grains, we also had blue revolution, that is the growth of fishes or the organism in the seas. We had white revolution, that is regarding the production of milk. We had golden revolution regarding the production of fibers. So in this we see, then we had yellow revolution regarding the growth of pulses. We have grey revolution. We have also Black Revolution. Black Revolution is related to the biological weapons. So you can see so many revolutions, so many breakthroughs were there because of the introduction of biotechnology. Now we could solve the problem because we were producing huge quantity, and the carrying capacity of land increased because of this new technology. Now we next come the era of the present era. What was here in this period? We notice this was the period of computers, that is the information technology. The faster we could reach, the faster we could send a message, we made a secure life for us. So in this way you can see that the population tend to increase from 500 million in 1650 to 1 billion in 1830. From 1 billion in 1830 it increased to 2 billion, and it took nearly 100 years. Then it took only 30 years. In 1960 we reached 3 billion. Again it took only 15 years to double, and after that we are taking only 12 years to double the population, and we have already reached 8 billion. And we all know the land mass is limited. Moreover, in land mass, we don't have land mass in southern hemisphere much because most of it's covered with water bodies. So what will be the problems with this, and why is this happening? One very interesting thing, I think you must have noted it, you will find that this doubling rate of population is not same everywhere. It can be divided. The doubling rate of population is very slow, and in some places it is very fast. The places which have high economic development, the doubling rate is extremely slow because of low fertility rate and high urbanization. And this doubling rate of population is very fast, it's very high in places which have low economic development. The reason is high fertility rate, and these countries are basically associated with primary activities. So you can see that over the countries, it is, for example, the sub-Saharan African countries where the population growth rate is very high still today. So, and this is what we are bringing change in a population scenario from 1830 to present, that is 2020. Now what will happen if this population growth rate keeps on increasing? What will the problems we will be going to face? The first and foremost problem, because of this population explosion, rather I'll say not population growth, the population expansion, rather a stage of population explosion. Because of this explosion, we will find depletion of natural resources, either in terms of forest or in terms of mineral resources, energy resources. We all know, because fossil fuels, these are all exhaustible resources. So more and more we are utilizing them, we are going to deplete these resources. And the most important resource without which we cannot survive on earth, our sustenance depends on that, is water resource. There will be shortage of water if this is the rate the population keeps on growing. Population expansion will create a problem, acute problem of water shortage on the surface of the earth. Besides this depletion of natural resources, we will also find there is an immense environmental degradation all over the earth. There will be pollution everywhere. It can be the pollution of air, pollution of water, pollution of soil or land, noise pollution. So you can imagine that the growth of population, which is mainly because declining fertility, though the fertility has declined, but still in developing countries the fertility rate is high, but the mortality rate has declined, and because of this wider gap we are expanding in the population, and because of this expansion in population we will have all these problems. Moreover, there will be spread of diseases in places where we find there is dense population, because diseases spreads very fast in places which are densely populated. So we need to be very conscious about the population growth in our country as well as over the world. So that's all for today in trend and population growth. Thank you.